when the world shut down, everybody that had been being told all this time, well, go, if you don't like it, get a better job, went ahead and got a better job. So the bar employees have not returned in the same numbers as they were. We still haven't recovered for that. So in practicality, it's a matter of you can have maybe somebody working one shift a night, you work from 4 to midnight.
That's the voice of Mickey Lyons, author and journalist, and one of the people that I turn to when I want to know what's happening with the overall scene with things. You know, Daily Detroit is what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. And where to go and how that happens has really changed over the last few years. Now, of course, there is some stuff that's rebounded, but there are also some permanent things and permanent shifts that have happened. So Mickey is here to help unpack it all. I am Jer Stays, and this is your Daily Detroit for Monday, November 13th, 2023. Mickey, it's so good to talk to you. An honor and a pleasure, as always.
Hey, Jer, good to see you again.
It's always good to see you. You know, you bring in so much knowledge and history and everything else. Every time I talk to you, I feel like I come out smarter.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
There's a number of topics I want to get into. Obviously, we're going to talk about food and beverage and drinks and all the things that you are known for. There was a piece a little bit a while ago in Fast Company, of all places, because you're moving on up.
I am, I tell you.
This is how COVID-19 changed the way Americans drink. And before we get started, this is not going to be like a doom and gloom. It's going to be more about what's actually happening and what people are doing about it, right? Because it's a fact of life and we're here.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily all bad. There's changes, there's shifts, you know. COVID changed everything for all of us. And it's just the good news, I suppose, or the bad news, depending on how you look at it, is we're still drinking plenty. We're just doing it a little differently.
That's interesting to me because I feel like there is somewhat of a generational shift around drinking in general. Is that also true?
Yes.
Okay.
And when I say we're still drinking plenty, I should note that I am on the older side of the equation, and folks in my cohort are drinking more. Folks younger than 25 are drinking a lot less, and that is going to change the industry completely. It really is.
I think about the fact that I drank a lot more before I was 25.
Yeah, I know. Same here. Yeah. It's entirely different, though. You know, legal marijuana has changed the game completely, and COVID changed the game. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So legal marijuana had an impact.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of, and this didn't make it all the way into the article because they didn't want to muddy the waters there, but a lot of what we see trending in the younger generation, Gen Z, I would say, is that they're much more willing to pop an edible and go hang out on the couch with their friends for a little bit, or pop an edible, have one beverage, wait for that to kick in, and hang out. Even drink a non-alcoholic beverage. You know, I hate the word mocktail, but a non-alcoholic cocktail. So it's definitely lower ABV, less drinking in general for Gen Z is definitely.
Well, at least they're saving themselves from the memory of aftershock.
Yeah. Oh, God.
As we are closer in age, I feel like I consider myself a veteran young guy at this point.
I just had a harrowing flashback. Thank you very much.
So at least they're saved from that. There are a number of other impacts, though.
I am, again, being of the older generations, I'm not so much a stay out till 3 o'clock in the morning person anymore, and it turns out nobody is. We are many of the bars that cut down their operating hours because of staff shortages have never reopened and have not stayed open later. You know, turns out my mom was right. Not a whole lot good does happen after midnight.
So did some of these places try it? Because, you know, this has been a conversation in the wider Detroitiverse or whatever you want to call it about how there's not enough places open late.
Yeah. So again, and a lot of that was staff shortage. When the world shut down, everybody that had been being told all this time, well, go, if you don't like it, get a better job, went ahead and got a better job. So the bar employees have not returned in the same numbers as they were. We still haven't recovered for that. So in practicality, it's a matter of you can have maybe somebody working one shift a night, you work from 4 to midnight. Working 4 to 3 is kind of pushing it.
I have seen this shift too, where you see less places open for lunch, not just in downtown Detroit, but in general. I've seen more places are open for a shift, and I wonder how on earth they make it. But I remember back in the day, you'd see breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever. I feel like there are places that open an early shift, and then there's other places that do a late shift, but less and less unless it's a major chain. Is it 4 full calendar or full clock.
Right. Yeah. And that's directly tied to kitchen staff shortages. And that was one of the major casualties of COVID is kitchen staff just never came back.
So that's something that's going to be very difficult to address and change if someone were to say, I really want to bring back a late night scene.
Right. Yeah. Because right now we just don't have the people power to do it. And there are still, it's not like we don't have a late night scene. There's still plenty of spots. It's just, for a variety of reasons, those people just aren't there in the kind of volume that they were before. Now, that said, a lot of people have noted that downtown, because no one's working in their offices anymore or not as many, downtown is dying. And one of the things that I discovered in the article is that the downtown happy hour is very much in peril. Because nobody is finishing up their work at 4:59 and walking right down the block to the bar downtown and grabbing happy hour with their colleagues. The good news, though, is that happy hour is not dead. It just moved. And it moved to the residential areas. So people still want to get together after work for a drink, maybe even more so because they're working alone and they're in isolation. They still need that drink, that bite, that snack, that conversation to shift the end of the workday and some socializing. They're just doing it in their neighborhoods. So the neighborhood bar happy hour is doing fantastic.
It's interesting because we've had some pretty good success with some of our happy hours with Daily Detroit. And I think it's because it helped people give a reason to go out because we have a lot of listeners who do work from home or they're on different shifts. One thing that my colleague Devin O'Reilly, you've met Devin before. Yeah. He's noticed that their workers are leaving a little bit earlier. So people might say they have kids or something and they kind of sneak in or try to sneak in a drink or seeing friends or something like that a little bit earlier to get there, before they need to be there for childcare or something like that. That's almost like a parental impact.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say. And the happy hours are more like 4 to 6 than 5 to 7 these days. Yep.
Interesting. What are some other ways? Because I've talked to some different restaurateurs and they say that there's definitely that shift towards residential, towards being a little bit closer, and that there have been some things that are just they feel like just aren't coming back. They used to wish that they would, but they feel like that they're not.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that the pandemic and the resulting sort of change in the way we work and the way we live has really done is moved everything to extremes. So just like the older generations are drinking more while the younger generation is drinking less, we also see sort of this shift from people want to be super comfortable basically in their pajamas in a living room type setting, or they want to go all out, dressed to the nines, and go hyper in on luxury. So the luxury market for alcohol in particular, that's considered anything over $50 per bottle. So that luxury market skyrocketed since COVID and has not slowed down since.
So part of the reason why we're seeing more luxury things is because people want more luxury things.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. One person that I've talked to one of the marketing folks at Moet Hennessy, and he said, well, we had a lot of COVID dollars, those stimulus checks. A lot of people spent those exactly the way they were designed to be spent, on consumer goods. And that has sort of carried over, and it just sort of created this pattern where we say, well, why not treat myself? You don't need a graduation or an anniversary or a promotion to open a bottle of champagne anymore.
A lament I hear from a number of listeners has been, where has the middle gone? Because we know that the dive bar in some ways has been able to succeed because many of those dive bars, as you've reported, own their own spot. When you own a place, that gives you a huge advantage, but the middle seems to be dropping out and they feel out of place, feeling like, well, I have to go more luxury. And I've always thought there's various cost concerns with that too. It's if you're luxury, you have higher staffing costs, all those other things. You're able to absorb them better as a luxury place, but there's obviously some other issues involved too.
Yeah, there's some payoffs. I mean, you go big, you win big, but you could also fail big if you're trying to start out with a luxury brand or a luxury bar or restaurant around here. You have to have pretty deep pockets and be willing to take a pretty big gamble in order to do that. But in this kind of market, it's becoming increasing across the country and even in Detroit for sure. It's just becoming increasingly competitive. Bar profit margins are some of the lowest in all economies, basically, even more so than food almost. So your profit margin is so tremendously narrow to begin with. Now you've got more competition. You combine that with staffing shortages, labor shortages. You combine that with weird things like material shortages. The supply chain affected the drinks industry. The world ran out of glass bottles for a while because most glass bottles are made internationally in China or Hungary or Italy, and they couldn't get shipped over here. So, you combine all of these things and it becomes a very fraught time to try and be opening a bar, I would say.
What are a couple of things that you've seen that those who are succeeding do well?
Personalization. Folks that are opening a bar that very much, like I talked about, that sort of living room feel. If we're not going hyper luxurious, your Cambria hotels, your Godfreys, these guys, if we're not going hyper luxurious or your Mad Nices, then people want to feel more like the Cheers aspect.
Well, you mentioned those places. I feel like they're luxurious in a setting way. I mean, their programs could be what they are, but all of them feel very Instagrammable.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And visuals, now that TikTok and Instagram are a part of daily life for everybody, visuals are increasingly important in the drinks world. Even in the craft cocktail world, I don't really need to see one more super smoked cocktail, but it sure does look good.
Some other things that people are finding success with, if you're not going to go hyper luxurious or do the living room, like what are some of the things you're seeing?
Just be unique. We don't necessarily need another French-inspired bistro around here.
I feel like there's been a propagation of those.
Yeah, they just sort of blossomed all at once. And, I don't think it's an international conspiracy, but, the Paris of the Midwest is really starting to look like the Paris of the Midwest in corners. So I think we're good. I think we've reached capacity there. But having a unique and original idea and having the forthrightness to stick to it no matter what. I'm thinking in particular of something like Castalia. Kevin Peterson over there, he's got a small space. He's got a very strong and very specific vision that nobody else does. Something like the Black Salt in Hamtramck. It's a witchcraft cocktail bar. It took her years to fix up that space and get open. And she opened up and they've gone gangbusters since then because they have a very specific vision that is unique. So we're looking for novelty. We're looking for unique. We're looking for comfort.
And someplace that it's worth it if you make the drive out to.
Exactly. Yeah.
If
we
you
all
want to
got
drop
real lazy.
Yeah, unless you want to do something in a specific neighborhood you can pull from. If you're going to do something like that, it needs to be, if I'm going to go 15, 20, 25 minutes, the experience needs to be worth it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that is one of the other national trends that happened as a result of COVID, of the pandemic, is that we're just not going out as much. So when we do go out as much, and I know this for myself personally, I was going out, I do this for a living, but, 2, 3, 4 nights a week sometimes. Now it's more like 1 or 2, and it's got to be worth it for me. So that's pretty much reflective of a national trend that we're all real. We taught ourselves how to be bartenders over the pandemic because we had no other choice. So now we've got, a liquor cabinet that is stocked with all sorts of things, and we can make drinks ourselves. We can pop a gummy and sit down on our couches. So it's got to be worth it to go out.
There's been a lot of consternation about the future of bars, restaurants, obviously downtown, greater downtown, but in general, you see some closures recently, things like that. What are your prognostications or thoughts in the next couple of years for bars and restaurants in, we could say Detroit, but also the region?
Yeah, bars are never going to go away. Bars have always been part of human civilization. The best ideas and some of the best things happen at bars. So we're never going to stop getting together and consuming some sort of mood and mind enhancing chemical. How that evolves, if I had a crystal ball, I'd say we're going to see the marijuana consumption lounges are going to have an effect because people are going to have a choice, to go out with their friends and hang out on couches and smoke or go and hang out and drink.
I feel like once the regulations open up on that or local communities open up on that, because that's been kind of thing that's held them up a little bit.
Yeah.
Is the city of Detroit only has so many of them. Hazel Park actually has been a place that Hot Box Social is one that opened, but there aren't many of them yet.
Not at all. Yeah.
But when they do happen, it could definitely impact that industry. I could see that.
Yeah, I would say right now the impact they've had is negligible because there are so few of them. But, once you've got a neighborhood, smoke lounge, that's going to make a difference. The other thing that has had just a massive, massive impact on what we drink and how we drink is the RTD. That is the ready-to-drink cocktail. I don't know if you remember canned cocktails before COVID. They were almost non-existent. You
saw them at the ballpark.
You saw them at the ballpark, and they were almost inevitably bad. We're not talking about your White Claws and hard seltzers. I'm talking about you'd see a Moscow Mule in a can that was just pure sugar. The game for RTDs has changed so drastically and so quickly that it grew something like 150% in the year between 2020 and 2021. Just boom, taking off. So now there are lists, there are awards for the best RTD cocktails. So that's going to change how we drink too, because now I can get a good quality Negroni or a good quality old fashioned, and I can sit around a campfire with my friends and drink it. I don't have to be sitting at a bar doing it because I can get it in a can now.
Another shift that comes to my mind is, and this maybe is more gradual, is the shift of watching sports at the bar to sports at home.
Yeah.
Because I think about all the times I would go to the bar to watch the ball game or whatever, and especially since COVID for me, but I know for other people, TVs are getting better, all that other stuff. That's another situation where that RTD, that ready to drink, could come in handy.
Definitely. In some ways, the bar is becoming less of an everyday thing and a bit more of a special occasion, but it'll never go away, And like I said, we're all still drinking in general, overall, just as much.
We're recording this in November. What are some of the things that you are excited about that are coming up?
I am a huge, huge, huge fan of aperitivos and bitter drinks in general, Amaro, that kind of thing. So I love to see what everybody starts doing when you combine heat and Amaro, because you get these wonderful spiced, warming, bitter drinks. So
for someone new who doesn't know what you're talking about,
yes.
I know what you're talking about because we've had Amaros together before.
Yeah. The suitcase Amaro.
Yes, the suitcase Amaro. What's a good starter for somebody?
I would say Amaro Montenegro is a good middle of the road. So Amaro are made in almost all countries in the world. They're most dominant in Italy. And the suitcase Amaro is I came back from Italy with a literal suitcase full of Amaro. So Amaro Montenegro, they're very herbal. They're bitter, but you can have a lot of fun playing with them. So I love just drinking it with soda on the rocks. But like I said, hot Amaro is a category into and of itself that is really interesting.
And this stuff is, obviously your suitcase was special, but this is something that now the better retailers, people can pick up.
Yes. Yeah. Just about everywhere you go is going to have 3-4 bottles of it at your local liquor stores. And the nice thing about the Amaro is it is lower alcohol by content. So, it's not 88 proof or 100 proof like a whiskey is. It's closer to 40 proof. So it's lower ABV.
To me, it's more of that after work drink or something where you have to do something in the morning. Because for me, as I've gotten older, there's certain boozes I have to select what I'm doing depending on the day. Yeah. Anything locally?
There have been some great new openings. I don't want to call anyone in particular out because that doesn't seem fair. I'm always up for a good happy hour. I will say this, I went to the Detroit Cocktail Classic a few weeks ago, and that's in Eastern Market. So all the bars, cocktail bars and restaurants from around Metro Detroit come and they showcase what they're doing with their cocktails. I'll say it was all incredibly tequila heavy. Tequila and mezcal are taken off too, so very, very heavy on the tequila and mezcal. And I had an absolutely crackerjack drink from Basan downtown that was tequila, a little bit of Amaro, and a couple other flavors. That was just fantastic.
And in the favor of things like the Detroit Cocktail Classic, that's an experience.
Yes, it is.
Right? So I guess maybe that's the big takeaway, is that drinking isn't just drinking, it's an experience.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Mickey Lyons, always good to talk to you. What's your latest thing? Where can I send people?
Oh, gosh. I've got a monthly column in Our Detroit. My editor proudly calls me the drinks expert. So I'll take that.
You know what? I will co-sign that.
All right, deal.
Mickey Lyons, thank you so much for joining us on Daily Detroit.
Thanks, Chair.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Feedback, as always, 313-789-3211 or dailydetroit@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. We'll be back with you tomorrow. I'm Chair Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around town.